Well, good evening, everyone. I am Al with Longoriahaus Dog Training here in Houston, Texas. Hey, thanks so much for joining me tonight for our next Q&A. Really, I am enjoying doing these things. They've been so wonderful. If this is your first time here, hey, thanks so much for coming. If you've been here multiple times, hey, welcome back. Really love you guys. And hey, any question that you want to ask tonight, you just let me know, and I'm happy to answer that. I'm going to do just a couple of things real quick just to make sure I've got everything in order, that the live stream is up and going well. But once we do that, we're going to get right into our first question. And just to kind of give you a heads up on what this first topic that I'm going to cover, I'm first going to be talking about getting off of the racetrack and getting onto the dance floor. This is something that I've been talking to a lot of my clients about, and I think it's a pretty funny thing, but it's part of our mentality when we're working with dogs. All right, so let me just check one thing real quick, guys, and we'll get rolling. Hope everybody's having a good week. Seems like the kiddos are going back to school now, and so that's really fascinating to see all those pictures. And I know all my teacher friends, they're really excited and anxious at the same time about everything that's going on. But hey, good luck to all the students and all the educators out there on another successful school year. So what I want to kind of get started off with is this topic of getting off the racetrack and getting onto the dance floor. And what does this have to do with dog training? So here it is, okay? A lot of us, when we begin to train our dogs, are really thinking about getting from point A to point B. And that's fine and dandy. Obviously, you couldn't really go anywhere if you didn't ever have destinations. But I'm going to tell you that if you're struggling, if it's you that's struggling with your dog on your walk, okay, then this mentality is actually going to work against you a little bit. If you're thinking like, hey, how do I get around the block? How do I get down the street? And really what I want you to do is you begin to prepare yourself to go for these leash walks with your dog, and you want that nice slack leash and that attentive dog that's looking up at you. By changing your perspective from the racetrack, from getting to point A to point B, and you begin to think about the way that people think about the dance floor, it's going to begin to change things. Let me get a little particular here. So on the dance floor, what is it that happens? Well, the dance floor, you lead or you get led, and your dog, when it's on a walk, should be led by you. Now, everybody really understands this, but what begins to happen to us whenever we go on our walks is you're going to see that, hey, you've got a destination in mind, and your brain is going to tell you, hey, do whatever you can to get that destination. And the next thing that happens is your dog is pulling in front of you. So you're like, no, I have to lead. And then you pull the dog back, and it lasts for a moment, and then your dog is right back to the end of the leash again. But if you think about what happens on a dance floor, you're kind of in a contained area, and you have to stay inside that area, and you have to navigate it. So here's one little quick tip that may actually help you with your walk. I want you to actually completely slack your leash when you're walking with it. I'd like for you to put it in your left hand, but your right hand is fine. And then I want you to keep your arm by your side. If you have a training collar, like a pinch collar, this may actually help you too. So as you begin to move with your dog, if your dog takes the lead, instead of trying to get to that destination you've been thinking about, that's the whole racetrack mentality, turn around and go to the other end of the dance floor immediately. And you should do it quickly. And as you do this, the leash and the training collar will help your dog know that there is a boundary there. But as soon as your dog follows your lead again, guess what's going to happen to that leash? It's going to go nice and slack for your dog. And if you're not aware, a slack leash, a leash that goes from tight to slack, is a learning cue for your dog. Your dog's brain is going to look at that and say, oh, whatever led up to that moment, okay, is something that maybe I shouldn't be doing. I need to change my attention. And so if you continue to use this, that every time the dog takes the lead to try to get to the, to the end goal, if you just act like you're on a dance floor and spin away from the dog, and then the leash goes tight and it goes slack, then your dog will begin to actually pay attention to you to make sure that they're following you. And what you're going to see is a dog that will actually begin to, most times, not always, but most times, begin to look up at you. And then and I hadn't said this yet, and then if your dog is looking up at you, that's actually when you begin to talk to the dog. It's really fascinating for people when they get to watch me work a dog for the first time. And if you've been around dog training a lot, you know that you really shouldn't give a lot of voice commands. But you're like, well, how do I get there? Well, like in this situation, I'm actually very, very quiet when I do leash walking with the dog in the beginning, because what's going to tell the dog what to do is actually not your voice, but it's the way that you move your body, and the way that the leash turns on and off is really going to give the dog the best clue about how to move together with you seamlessly. So why don't you give that a try? Think about your leash walking, think about how long your line is, and then also, most importantly, think about your perspective of how you're treating your walk with your dog if you're training. I will tell you this, that once your dog learns how to follow you, it's actually a very easy thing to be able to set destinations, because your dog knows how to stick with you. So again, this whole topic was get off of the racetrack, get onto the dance floor with your dog, lead your dog by moving, and when you first start, try not to talk. If you need any more help, love to hear what you need help with, what you're struggling with. But hey, that's the first topic that I have. Now, if anybody, and hey, thank you to everybody that's joining in. So let's see who's in. Hey, Robert, Mandy, Gerda, Mom, Ashley, hi Debbie. Hi, Monica. Hey, thank all of you guys for coming in and watching some of this. If I can bring any value to you, if you have any questions, hey, what's going on with your dog this week? What are you working on? What is it? What's the skill that you want to teach your dog and you want to begin to clarify? Would love to hear what it is. Hey, Marlene, hope you're doing well. If you have any questions that I can help you with, or just a comment, I'd love for you to be able to share with us. You know, sometimes, you know, when we do these live Q&As, it can be a little tough to ask a question. So if you don't necessarily have a question, that's okay. But if somebody does and you're kind of teetering on thinking about asking a question, hey, I just say type it in there, because I'm sure that somebody else, whether it's today or some weeks from now, will watch this video and you'll be giving them help. All right, so I do have another topic that I want to go over. Before I do that, I do want to mention to you guys just a couple of things. You guys who have been watching this for several weeks know that I've been doing contests and giveaways. So we actually have a new contest. Our last contests were all on Instagram, but we have a new contest, and yes, this is on Facebook. So our new contest is actually going to be on Facebook. But that's actually as specific as I'm going to get right now. You guys kind of get the first one to know that the contest is going to be on Facebook. But what I'd like you to do, and I'm going to kind of make you a little proposition, what I'd like you to do, if you're not already signed up for our newsletter, if you'll go to my website, okay, which is Longoriahaus.com, at the very top, you're going to see a link for our newsletter. If you go on there and if you sign up for our newsletter, two things are going to happen. One, if you sign up for our newsletter tonight, I'm going to be shipping these to you tomorrow morning. Okay, so if you sign up for our newsletter tonight, you haven't previously signed up, I'm going to ship these toys that we use to play with our dogs and a lot of our clients' dogs to you tomorrow morning. Now, the other thing, okay, is that if you get our newsletter is actually going to come out, I believe, on tomorrow, either tomorrow or first thing Friday morning. But that's where we're going to unveil the new contest, and you'll actually be able to get a head start on everybody that's thinking about entering. Now, the prize for the contest, what has that been? Well, I've been giving away about $100 worth of dog food to whoever wins the contest for that week. So, hey, who doesn't need another bag of dog food? Hey, Ashley, thanks so much for joining in. I hope you're doing great. I hope your dog is doing well. If you have questions, you know this is the time to ask. I'd love to hear how your boy is doing. Hey, Nicole, thanks so much for joining in tonight. Really appreciate you. Hey, Nicole, if there's anything that I can do to bring you value or any questions that you have, I'd love to do that. But hey, if you guys haven't already, go down there in the corner and hit that share button. Let some of your friends know. Now, I am going to get into the next topic. For those of you guys that are joining late, the first thing that I went over is, it's about leash walking and our mentality, but I went over getting off of the racetrack and onto the dance floor. Okay. So the next topic is actually something that I missed last week, which is I have an excited dog. When I arrive home, he quickly gets mouthy, okay? He quickly gets mouthy, And what can I do to actually calm my dog? Okay, so here's the thing, okay? When we walk on the door, I'm just going to tell you that my dogs are absolutely excited to see me. And for any of you guys that know my dogs, I have Gabby, okay? Gabby is about 2.5-year-old German Shepherd. She is a very, very driven German Shepherd. And I don't want to say a year ago, but probably in the last 6 months, I had an issue that when I was coming home from seeing all of you guys, I would walk in the door and Gabby was jumping on me. Whether it's jumping or mouthiness, what can you do? Well, here's what I did. The first thing I did, and you guys know how much I love this command, the first thing that I did is prior to that moment where Gabby was jumping on me, I actually began to train her with me standing right by the door that I'm going to enter the home in, and I began to send her to her place. And when I did that and she went there, I began to reward her. Hey, that sounds pretty simple, right? Give the command, hey, go to your bed. The dog goes to their bed, okay? And then you end up rewarding. And we kind of turned it into a little bit of a drill for several days so the dog could be like, okay, when you're standing at the door, you're going to give this voice command, and I love food, I love you. If I get on the bed, then you're going to give me food and you're going to give me some of that attention. So I did that for several days. So then what I began to do is I would crack the door open, Gabby was waiting there for me, and I would immediately say, go to your bed, and she knew that. So then I would lead her over, she would begin to go over to her bed, and then I would make my reward. Once she was on the bed, because she knew the skill, that skill teaches her to keep her paws grounded, and it actually allowed me a way to interact with her mouth in a way that if you have a mouthy dog, that it's also going to ground them. Now, I didn't really stop there. I did that training by teaching my dog to go to its place. I also helped her to understand that, hey, I'm going to walk in the door and give you this command, but I also used a remote collar at the end of this. So one day I actually walked in and I, on purpose, opened the door, got her more excited so that way she could make a mistake, and then I did use my remote collar to tell her no. At this point, what Gabby had in her brain is she had three things, okay? She knew that going to the bed was good. She also knew that when I walked in the door that this is what I was going to ask her to do. And she also knew that if she got excited that yes, she would become uncomfortable for that decision. And it didn't really take all that long. And so now I can actually walk in the door of my home, I can give a voice command that my dog understands, and I can reward her, and I don't have to continue to correct or discipline the dog. I just ask her to do the thing that we've been practicing, okay? But I do think that all three of those, pre-practice, showing the dog how to be successful, and then also showing the dog what's wrong so its knowledge is complete and it can make the best decision with that situation. So really that's how I handle mouthy dogs, is by using, and jumpy dogs is by using the place command. There are other ways to deal with this, okay? But this is probably the easiest one to deal with. It is beneficial, and I've done this sometimes in the past, it is beneficial to have people, okay, that will maybe have the leash and will move the dog, okay, move the dog for you into its place, but it is, it is what it is. All right, guys. So why is this? Hey, Rob, thanks so much for joining. Hey, I just got a message a moment ago just saying that the live stream is cutting out a little bit. I do apologize about that. I've got all the devices turned off. It might actually be because I'm watching it on my iPad as well. So, hey, you pay for so much internet, but it can only give you so much bandwidth. So if I'm cutting out, I do apologize. If you need me to repeat any particular portion of this, just let me know. And if it's cutting out really bad, you guys just let me know that, hey, can't hear you or something like that. We could always stop the live stream and start it up again. All right, so what's next on the list, okay? So I did get a question last week and it was really good. Hey, Brittany, thanks so much for your question. I'm going to go ahead and answer yours right now before I go into the next one. So Brittany, your question is, my dogs don't listen to me at all. I'm stern with them when need be and give them attention other times, but they have zero respect for me. It's a complicated question for sure, but I'm going to give you some things that you can actually begin to do today, Brittany, that we teach all of our clients that begin to to really make your voice worth being listened to. So I want your voice to be very powerful. But then I also want you to be respected, that when you say something and you say it once, that it actually gets done. And you know what I call that is having a happy and reliable dog. They enjoy doing the things you say, and the things that you say actually get done because you need them to get done. So let me just teach you a little bit about how to make your voice more powerful. It's a very simple principle, but it's not so easy for humans to do this. You want to talk, you want to use your voice right before the dog experiences an emotion, and you also want to be speaking while the dog is experiencing an emotion. So you're like, well, hey Al, how do I know when my dog is actually experiencing emotions? Well, let me simplify on the positive side of emotions. Okay, so you could say, pleasure or comfort, any of those two things, if your dog is experiencing any of those. So, for example, if you had food in your hand and you were very quiet, the moment that you open your hand and your dog starts eating, if you start talking at that moment, that actually begins to make your voice powerful. Now, to contrast that, if you are constantly talking to your dog and there are no emotions, your dogs will learn to ignore your voice. It's very difficult for some of us, okay, to actually be quiet. I know that it's a challenge for my clients. It's been a challenge for me in the past. So it's very good to be silent up until the moment that your dog is actually eating from your hand. Okay. So that's one way to make your voice a little bit more powerful. Now, I don't expect you to carry food around, but one of the practices that we recommend to everybody is hand feeding your dog several weeks and then personally disciplining yourself to not talk to your dog unless they're consuming food from your hand. Or if your dog is in a downstay, that you're actually petting the dog and talking to the dog at the same moment. So those are two things to make your voice more powerful. Okay, what's going to get you more respect? Well, the easiest thing that I know that's going to get you more respect is your dog wearing a leash, okay? And the quickest way to establish respect in a dog, I have found, is the place command. If you haven't seen this before, Brittany, we use elevated beds. If you jump over on Instagram, and I'm sure I have some pictures on Facebook, you're going to see dogs down on a bed, okay? And what we do to create respect for what the humans say is we use a leash, we pressurize that leash, and then when the dog gets onto the bed, we depressurize it. When we do that, when you have pressure on a leash, you put the dog in a place and then you depressurize it, that spot that the dog had to jump across to get onto the bed begins to get respected. It's important for your dog to come off so that way you can actually tighten the leash and put the dog back on there. Now, there's going to be a little bit of struggle between your dog because your dog is going to say like, hey, I don't want to stay. But this is so important for the dog to understand that you will be more patient and more assertive than your dog is stubborn, and that your dog must stay on the place. It's a good idea to match in some reward for the dog, but at the end of the day, your dog does have to do the things that you ask it to do. I do want you to reward your dog, but your dog really has to do a good job of staying on there until you release them. Let me show you the leash that I recommend that most people use. Okay, and hey, if you would like one of these leashes, I am more than happy to give one away. Just send me your mailing address and I'll put it in the mail for you. All right, here it is. So this is the leash that I like to use just to begin with. This is called a British slip leash. It's very effective for a lot of dogs for creating some respect, so that way they can understand that, hey, you're going to get on the bed. You're going to get on the bed, and then once you do that, it's going to go slack. If that doesn't work, there are other tools, but this one can do a pretty good job. So hey, hope that helps you with your voice. Hope that helps you get some more respect. If there's anything more that I can do for you, I'd love to be able to help you out, okay? All right, well, let's take a look and see who else has joined in. Say, hey, Nikki, thanks so much for joining in tonight. Sarah, good to see you. Hello, Maria. And hey, Maria, I'm about to answer your question here in just a second, Maria, so stay tuned. And Ashley, hey, appreciate you. Steve, nice to see you, man. How you doing? Okay. Hey, Alan, good to see you. All right, so The next question, okay, and Maria, this is yours from last week that I missed. How do you give freedom to a dog? It's kind of a 2-year process for me is what I do. And then after that, I really closely monitor it. A puppy will really spend a lot of time inside of a crate and inside of a playpen. And then really when they're out of a crate and out of a playpen, we're constantly doing place training. We're constantly doing leash walking. We're constantly doing coming when called. And any one of the other skills that we want to develop in our dogs so that way they can get good at it. So I'm really pretty disciplined with my own personal dogs for about 2 years to do that. Now look, you probably know this about me. I'm a little over the top when it comes to my dogs and the way that I do things. I do think that at about 1 year old, you can begin to do that with your dog if you've been training the place command, the leash walking and doing all that. Just really starting to establish to your dog, what's the norm of my household? Hey, how am I going to get you? How's the dog going to live together with you? I think as you begin to see that, one of the ways that I actually go about doing this, giving my dog some freedom, is I'll put my dog in its place. I'll give them something to do, and this is probably after a nice walk, and I'll leave for 15 minutes. And yes, in that time, your dog could destroy something. But I think that if you just leave for a short period of time, 5, 10, 15 minutes, you can begin to see what your dog is doing, okay? And then if you come back and everything's fine, then you continue your routine of doing your places, doing your leash walking, working your coming when called, working on playing with your dog, and doing those things. And then you give the dog a little bit more freedom. Before long, what you're going to see is that, hey, your dog is really understanding how to be a responsible dog in the home, and he's just, laying around, just patiently waiting for you guys to come back. So that's how I do it. But when I've done this, I did this with Gabby, and she did pretty well up to about 2 years old. Well, at 2 years old, I gave her freedom. I started leaving her out when I would go to church and do different things like that. But then at one point, I noticed that she started having some problems. So she got back into crate for a little while, and then we worked with her some more. So I still monitor the dog, and I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people make this mistake, and it's one that, I can see a lot of people making. They come back home, they gave freedom to their dog makes a mistake, and now they're angry and they direct it at the dog. And I just don't think you can realistically do that. People say, oh, my dog knows it's in trouble. It doesn't really know what it's in trouble for. It just sees your not so happy face, your kind of angry face, and probably decides that, hey, they've got that mad face that generally leads to nothing good. So just be careful with putting your dog back in trouble whenever they do that, okay? So you had a question here. If they leave the place, what impact does that if you're not there to correct? I'll tell you this. I talk about it a lot too. That if a human puts a dog on its place, and then they come off, then that somebody has to hold the dog accountable. But then if the dog gets on there on their own accord, and they can come off whenever they want, well, you kind of have to play it a little bit because it's kind of a gray area, right? So maybe you could set the dog up that every time that you leave, instead of saying go to your bed, you just do something special for the dog, and you're going to give him a reward on his bed. And most likely the training will grab hold once you leave, that he'll understand that this is the place to hang out in, okay? You can set cameras up. I've known people who have done that. They're watching it on their smartphones and doing things like that. But hey, just, take a look at that. But, it's a little bit dicey. But what I would do for your guy, because I'm kind of intimate with him and knowing him, maybe wait about 4 months before you give him that freedom. Let these behaviors that we're teaching him really begin to sink into his brain, because he has about a month of practice and stuff. And while he's doing a fantastic job, okay, I do think that he probably needs to stay, build this skill a little bit more. And then maybe also learn it in the backyard and in the front yard to really prove to you that he understands what you're asking him to do. So, hey, hope that helps. All right. Hey, Mark, thanks for joining in, man. Glad to see you here. Hey, Charles, thanks so much. So, hey, guys, are you getting something out of this? I'm really enjoying it, really enjoying the questions that you guys are giving me. So appreciate every single last one of you guys that have joined in tonight. So what's the next question? Okay. Yeah, all right. So this is actually a pretty good one. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a guide to when do you actually say no. So I'm going to take a sip here, collect my thoughts for a second, and kind of help you out. So I was training with a puppy the other day, a very young, I think golden doodle, and we were working on the place command, and I made the claim that I could get the dog to stay on the bed for 30 minutes. And they were like, oh, we'd love for you to prove that to us. Well, you know, not every time that I make a claim like that, sometimes I'm a little bit outrageous, but I'll make a claim like that. And sometimes get the dog to stay on the bed for 30 minutes isn't 30 minutes of, you know, perfect stay, but it might just be 30 minutes of me helping the dog with it. So as we were doing that, there were several topics that came up, but one of the topics that came up was, you know, when do I actually say no? So I'm going to teach you guys a couple of things that I do. Now, understand that the words are not as important as the actions that you take. So let me give you a scenario. Let's just say that you guys have been working your place command and your dog is on the bed. You've been using your clicker, you've been rewarding, you've just been giving the dog food, you've been petting him and doing all of that. And then all of a sudden, let's say like one of your cats runs by or something like that, or somebody rings the doorbell. And let's say the dog had not been off the bed for 10 minutes. What I'm probably going to do at that point, if the dog decides to come off, I am going to grab the leash. I'm probably going to be a little firm on it, not super firm, but a little firm on the leash. I'm going to begin to put the dog back on there, and then right before I put the dog back on, I'm only going to say, go to your bed. Once the dog is on there, and this is the first time the dog came off, I'm not going to give a treat. I'm not going to click. I'm not going to actually even give a command. I'm going to give the dog opportunity. Opportunity for what, you might ask? Opportunity to either come off, which I totally want the dog to do that, or opportunity to lay down and begin to get rewarded again. If the dog chooses to come off again, that's number 2, I'll probably do the same thing. Grab the leash, mildly pressure it, put the dog back on and say, go to your bed. I'll do that again a 3rd time. And I might even, when I'm looking at the dog and kind of seeing what's going on in their head, I might even do that 4 times. And I think that that's being fair. You know, the dog's not getting in trouble, but they're not getting rewarded either. But then if the dog comes off 5 times in a row after I've asked them to stay there nicely 4 times, I'm going to grab the leash. I'm probably going to put some firm pressure down it depending on which tool it is, whether it's a slip leash, maybe it's a pinch collar, maybe it's another type of collar, maybe it's a remote collar. But I'm going to do something at that point of making it uncomfortable for the dog. But this is after the dog told me 5 times in a row, I'm not going to stay where you asked me. So at that point, when the dog comes off, I'll say no. The leash will get uncomfortable for 2 to 3 seconds. And then I'll put the dog back on. And at that point, I become very, really want to observe the dog very closely to see what is the result of the consequence that the dog just received. If the result is calmness, then this is a good thing. You know that that technique, that correction actually worked to calm the dog. And about 3 to 5 seconds later, what I do is I begin to reward the dog again. Now, let me just kind of recap what I said. If I had the dog on its place, the dog came off once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Those 4 times, I would just put the dog back onto the bed and I wouldn't say no. But the 5th time that the dog comes off and I didn't ask it to, I would make it uncomfortable for the dog. I would put the dog back onto the bed and I would have preceded all of that by saying no. So the dog comes off, I say no. I use something that makes the dog uncomfortable for about 3 to 4 seconds. Then I put the dog back on. And if I witness the dog become calm, then I store that information in my head and I say that was effective. And then I go back to rewarding my dog again. So that's kind of a guide that you can use for your dog to when should you say no? Should you say no each and every time? Some dogs you have to if they're dangerous. Some dogs you want to have a lot of patience and grace and mercy and not necessarily correct them the first time they make a mistake. But if the dog is deliberately telling you time and time again that I'm not going to do the thing that you're asking me to do, and you've put the work in to show the dog that it's valuable, then it is okay to tell your dog no. All right, so what's next, okay? So Kanisha, you have a question? Okay, tips on walking a hyperactive pit. addressing leash pulling and excitement when seeing other dogs and people. She is 10 months old and hard of hearing. So what I'll tell you, Kanisha, is that your dog's ability to hear or inability to hear actually plays to your favor in this situation. Because if you understand what leash walking is, it has very little to do with sound, and it has everything to do with the way that you're moving your body and the way that you're using your leash. Now, many people, and I don't know if this is you, but many people, what they do when they have a powerful dog that's really pulling a lot is they put the dog into a harness. And I want you to imagine this. When you put pressure directly across the chest of any animal, that animal then loads into the pressure. So Kanisha, if that is you, if your dog is in a harness, I do not recommend that tool. Now, okay, what I would begin to do is, and I'm going to mention this to you, at the very beginning of my live stream, which I'm going to post at the end, whenever this is over, I want you to watch the first few minutes, because I'm actually going to go over what my mentality is when I begin to walk a dog on a leash. So here's actually some practical steps that I want you to take this week, okay? I want you to take up your dog's food for the week. I want your dog to eat no food out of a bowl this week. And what you're going to do is I want you to get yourself a treat or a food pouch, and I want you to put that treat pouch on the left-hand side of your body. And I want your dog to get 100% of its food while it's on the left-hand side of your body for a week. What you're attempting to do is you're attempting to create a belief in your dog's mind that the left side of your body is the perfect place to be. Now, depending on where you live, your next week, after you've shown the dog that, hey, it's really awesome to be on my left-hand side, now you're going to have to teach your dog how to respect your leash. Now, there's a lot of different leashes that you can use to help you with this. The leash that I most commonly use is I use what's called a British slip leash. If you need to know where to find one, let me know what part of town you're in or what part of the country you're in, and I'd be happy to help you find one. We can also ship one out to you. The single biggest mistake that I see people make with their dogs that are pulling on the leash is that when I watch them handling the leash, they've got all of the leash in their hand. And yes, it does give you great physical control, but what it doesn't allow the dog to do is it doesn't allow the dog to get to the end of the leash, where if you have a training leash like this one, okay, when the dog gets all the way to the end of the leash, this part is going to close the way you see right there. And if your dog pulls all the way to the end of the leash and then you walk the opposite direction, that is a signal for many dogs to stop pulling on the leash. Because what's going to happen, if your dog goes to the end and you walk away, that leash will be tight. And it may be uncomfortable for your dog, which is not a bad thing. But then the moment your dog moves back towards you, the leash is going to relax. That's going to send a signal to your dog's brain that whatever led up to pulling on the leash, that it shouldn't continue to do. Now, the other thing that's hurting you, and it's at the beginning of the video, and I do want you to go back and watch it, is stop trying to walk to a destination, but start walking only to lead your dog. Hey, I hope that's helpful. Go back and watch this video once I've uploaded it. It should be up within an hour after it ends, but it's going to have that. If you have any more questions, feel free to send us a message. I probably have a video on my YouTube channel that could probably walk you through the steps, but I'd love to help. Hopefully that was helpful. Hey, Lou, good to see you, man. Carolyn, hey, thanks so much for joining in tonight. Rebecca, thank you for joining in tonight. Hey guys, if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. Hey Ashley, I see you had something else. Let me read that. Blue decided to pee inside the house the other day, which he hasn't done since he was little. I just let him out and watched him pee not 15 minutes before. How do I correctly handle that and cut it at the pass before it becomes commonplace? So the first question I have for you, Ashley, is was it peeing or was it marking? Okay, but the main thing is, okay, if it's peeing, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to take away the bowl of water for about a week or two. Okay, so take away the bowl of water for a week or two, and then go back to really showing him that when you use the restroom outside, that it's incredibly pleasurable. Okay, And then you kind of want to manage him. You kind of want to watch the guy. The thing that's going to really help you the most is if he can't just drink whenever he wants to, it's going to help you predict whenever he needs to go to the restroom, so that way you can get him the information that he needs to know that you really, really want him to go outside. You know, the great thing about about the dog potty training is that any time that the dog uses the restroom, it rewards. But that's also the bad thing about it, that if he's inside your home and he's using the restroom, the brain is saying, hey, this is a good thing. So by taking up your water, controlling his environment a little bit, and then taking him outside when he does have water in, and rewarding him with the things. I know you have a flirt pole. Use your flirt pole after he's done playing, and that'll be really good for him. I think that'll make a really strong association if you can do that. Now, if he's marking, I do think that if you can catch him within a second and a half of him actually marking in your home, that it's perfectly acceptable for you to tell him that you do not want him doing that, okay? And you use whatever tool that is necessary to be able to help him to clearly understand that, okay? So however you're going to tell him no, make sure that you're prepared with that in advance to communicate to him that you didn't want him to mark. But I also, if he is marking, then I also want you to find a bush, a tree, or a place that you want him to specifically mark, and I want you to take him to there. I want you to take him to that spot and then show him how much it means to you for him to mark there. I know that sounds a little funny, but I know that it can actually be pretty useful. Okay. Oh, hey, Kanisha, see that? Yeah, hey, make sure you check it out. If you can't find what you're looking for on our YouTube channel, be sure to send us a message. I'd love to shoot some content. I actually have some video that we're working on right now of me walking and teaching a dog how to walk on a leash, and I hope to have that up on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel here before long. All right, going to take another sip. Hey, man, you guys are making me talk a lot. So, hey, really enjoy you guys. Thank y'all so much for joining in tonight. Really appreciating y'all. Hope this is bringing you value. If you've just signed in, you know, it would mean the world to me if you would go down to the bottom and you would hit that share button, share that with your friends, send it on Messenger, or, hey, even just post it on your wall. Any one of those things, we would greatly appreciate it. But if you're also just joining in, I did want to talk about the contest that we're doing. So we do have a new contest this week. Last week we were doing a contest on Instagram that we were giving away a really great prize. But this week we're actually going to move the contest to Facebook, okay? Now, that's all the details that I'm willing to give out right now about what our contest is going to be. It is going to be later on in the week, but yes, we're going to be doing a new contest. Now, if you want to find out the exact details of this contest, we're actually going to be sending that out tomorrow or maybe Friday morning in our next newsletter. So you're like, hey Al, I don't get your newsletter. Well, let's just make it real simple. If you go to my website, which is Longoriahaus.com, at the very top of the website, you're going to see a section in our menu that says newsletter. And so if you sign up for our newsletter, then when we mail it out here in the next couple of days, you're going to be able to find out all about that contest. Now, for any of you guys that are not getting our newsletter, I've got something special for you. So if you're not signed up, what we want to do is we're going to give anybody that signs up for a newsletter, we're going to give away a pair of these toys right here, these nice ball on a string that I like to use to play with my dogs. And if you sign up tonight, we're going to mail these out to you tomorrow morning. So one person that signs up for a newsletter is going to get that tonight. So, hey, what can you win in the contest? Not only if you sign up for a newsletter, but what are you going to win if you win the contest that we're going to start later on this week? Well, I've been giving away about $100 worth of dog food. So you can pick a food that your dog already loves or something new that you're thinking about getting for your dog. It's your choice. You win the contest, you get to tell me, hey Al, I want the $100 bag of dog food, and we're going to get that to you. So hey, go sign up for our newsletter. Sure would love to get you guys some great information through there. And hey, hope you win those balls. So all right, let's see who's next. Hey Sarah. Oh, hey Sarah, thanks so very much. Oh, that's so funny, Sarah. When I said your name, it thought I was talking to Siri. So no, I'm not talking to you, Siri. Let me start that back up. That's funny. Hey, but Sarah, hey, thanks so much. Really appreciate you guys. Really enjoyed working with you and your family. Just can't tell you how much it means to me to be able to come into your home and just to share what I'm so passionate about. So, all right, and hey, there's my uncle. Hey, Theo, thanks so much for joining in tonight. Really love you guys, but appreciate you joining in. Obviously, my mom just saw my uncle join in, so hey, that's really great. But hey, Theo, love you. Glad that you're here. Well, guys, does anybody have any questions? I'm gonna stay on the air for another couple of minutes. I'm happy to stay on. It's 8:40 right now by my clock. I'm happy to stay on for another 20 minutes if I can bring any value to anybody. Okay. But if you do have questions, feel free to ask those now. I've already gone over the 4 things that I wanted to cover. You know, we've gone over getting off of the racetrack and onto the dance floor. What do you do with an excited dog when you arrive home and they're getting mouthy? I also went over how do you give freedom to your dog, and then I also just gave you my really quick guide to saying no. Well, guys, I don't have anything else right now. So hey, so appreciate you, each and every one of y'all, for joining in. Thanks so very much. Hey, we're going to continue to do these. I'm going to be doing another one next Wednesday. If you would share that, it would mean the world to me. If you would hit that, smash down on that heart button right now and say, hey, you know, that there's been some value here, I would really appreciate that. But again, my name is Al Longoria. I am with Longoriahaus Dog Training. You should see that it's up at the top, maybe all over the place. But appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank y'all so much, and you guys have a blessed night. All right, take care. Bye.